Welcome back to the grim darkness of the 41st Millennium. I am Inquisitor Caveat Ventus, keeper of the Inquisition's Black Library, and this is my report on the Valentyne Heresy, an actual play podcast set in the Genesys adaptation of Warhammer 40,000's Dark Heresy RPG. This report features Game Master Tom McGee, Ryan LaPlante as Inquisitor Lucius Valentyne, Laura Elizabeth as Lyric, and Tyler Hewitt as Alto. My report shows that Valentyne and Lyric were forced to battle mutants, while Alto discovered the route to their method of escape, leaving mutants battling demons on the surface. The trio fled into the air ducts of the collapsing hive. Can they survive a race against time and find a way off-world before the Exterminatus arrives? Find out next, in this episode of the Valentyne Heresy.
When you signed up to be an Inquisitor, Valentyne, you had a number of preconceived notions, and of course, signed up is a broad term for being told. But when you decided that this would in fact be a path you would pursue and something that you want to excel in, you had images in your head of kind of what you'd heard around the various academy as sort of tales of high adventure. You know, like going to Xenos planets and facing down untold horrors. On war blasted vistas as the scream for the Emperor rang out from guard units engaged in combat against the Xenos threat, or purging heretics deep inside a corrupted cathedral, making sure that the twisted roots of chaos could not lay claim to yet another imperial world. You didn't imagine yourself being kind of like knee deep in a weird kind of horrific slush that seems to be made of vaguely decomposed matter from a variety of things, but basically the lint trap of a massive ventilation system that has not been cleaned or properly functional in a century. And yet, here is where you find yourself. Small amounts of static electric cling, just zapping your knees slightly frustratingly with each step, as you and your two strange new companions begin to wade your way through the massive ventilation system that will allow you to get to the last possible off-world transport before the Imperium shows up to do what it does best: obliterate this corrupted planet into dust. So, the three of you have been making your way through kind of the entry shaft now for about 20 minutes. And again, you know that the system is remote enough that there won't be a destroyer showing up immediately, but it will be soon. But unfortunately, there haven't been any, side paths or anything else. And you do know that, of course, you are exiting the dome, so that will take some time. But it also gives the three of you a moment to breathe, even if the air you're breathing is kind of fetid and gross. So, Valentyne, what do you think is going through your head as you and your newfound companions begin to make your way forward?
Well, the vision was terrible. Which he would really struggle to work around language-wise because he's determined not to be negative, but he doesn't have to say it out loud. So he'd be kind of doing some loops on I mean great, and then circling back to how troubling, and by troubling I mean what a great opportunity it is, kind of internally for a while. Doing the same propaganda that corporations do for themselves, but for himself in his own head. And I think he'd be using Eugene, because Eugene is like a Vox hailer skull. So he can translate messages. He also works as a loud hailer, and he's like a Vox receiver, like a basic one. So he's basically like a radio, like a police radio kind of thing. So I think he'd be watching that to see if he could hear anything, and he'd have an auspex that might help them track what's where they're going. But I think at this point, he wouldn't know too much about his new companions, but he'd probably try to chat them up if he could, because he doesn't know who they are or what their interests are. Mm-hmm. They could be cultists, they could be recidivists, or they could just be lovely citizens who he should befriend and protect.
So before we get too deep into that, what does Eugene look like? We've just basically described him in broad terms, but what's his deal?
Yeah, so Eugene is a human skull with one human eye, and then basically the rest of the skull is just internally a whole bunch of like motors and gears. And when the mouth opens, there's just like a speaker and a microphone. So Eugene has to open his mouth and be talked into to receive messages. Or he opens his mouth and it like opens and shuts as he talks from recordings. And then he's got kind of two anti-grav like plates under his, like where his neck would be, where the spine is, that just sort of float him up and around with like a hum that you probably wouldn't notice unless you really were familiar with Eugene. Otherwise it would just probably like here you wouldn't hear it, but like in silence you just hear a quiet little like hover hum.
Cool. So almost like a properly working computer fan. It's present, but not doesn't sound like a jet engine like mine does when I process these videos.
Yes. Great.
Okay. So yeah, Eugene is hovering along beside you. You're picking up some traffic, but it is very intermittent. To kind of put this in perspective, the best way to think of this tunnel is similar to a sewer, but a dry sewer. So kind of a massive sort of circular chamber with kind of two graded walkways that unfortunately at this point aren't really any less dirty than what you're walking through. But rather than kind of sewage flowing down the middle, you have what would normally be where, any number of servitors would come through and just kind of like clean up, because this is where all the dust and crud and skin flakes and everything else would land. But since the dome has been gradually breaking down over the years, it's just become a disgusting lint trap for things that have blown in from outside and have been kind of sucked out of Galen's glory and kind of blasted down this way. It's not dark, which is nice, or at least this section is lit. It has kind of those horrible work lights that you find in such industrial areas. But they're all in little alcoves similar to what you'd find in kind of an apartment hallway. So even though the lighting itself is kind of harsh, it is somewhat nicer down here than most places. And to your delight, about 70% of the lights are still operational. So there's still gaps in between, but there's also enough light that you're not struggling to see. Which is also good, because more light would really help you understand what you're wading through, and you don't want to. It's bad.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I am aware because I have bionic eyes, so darkness doesn't affect me the same way. So this place is gross, just not nice.
Yeah.
I have to say, for a second, I looked down at my character sheet thinking, do I have dark vision? Like, wrong game.
Not necessarily.
Look, this is the grim darkness of the future. There is only dark vision.
Not Warhammer 40,000, not known for well-lit rooms. Just nice, even soap opera lighting.
Unless you're Tau, in which case everything's fucking apple slick. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, have
Go to
fun
the
with
Genius
the nids,
bar.
Blue bastards.
Anyway, that's a little Tau humor for y'all. Welcome back to Dark Heresy. We're going to be using a number of Warhammer terms as we go, many of which I know, all of which Ryan knows, and perhaps all of which you know, or perhaps none of which you know. So from time to time, there will be things that may not make sense. We will try and clarify these as we go. But Laura and Tyler, feel free to dive in there if you hear a thing you're like, I don't know what the fuck that is. For instance, an Auspix is essentially a small handheld, in Star Trek terms, tricorder, in Ghostbusters terms, one of the Ecto readers,
EKG.
just like, an EKG meter, just like a small handheld device that operates kind of under a multitude of functions that are quite handy.
Yeah, so it can like scan the area. It can track a map, like it can do that kind of thing. It's also useful, and where you see it used a lot is in the way that when the Marines and Alien go down the hallway, and sometimes it can track life signs or movement through the walls. And Auspex can do that if you have the right info for it. It's like a wand and then
like
a screen
detector.
that's... Yeah, honestly, it's like a wand in your hand and then a small iPhone screen at the top with like sensors coming on.
It's every heads-up display in every video game you've ever played.
Perfect.
But handheld.
Glad we have it.
Cool.
Glad he's on our side.
So you hear scattered radio transmission blasts through Eugene's Vox coder. And it sounds like the PDF is now is in a panic. The Planetary Defense Forces are wildly under-equipped for what's occurring topside. You're hearing sort of more and more chatter about mutations. And it would seem that the irradiated leech people have now become the lesser concern, and the chaos-twisted creatures that were formerly the crew of the Gilead's Fist are becoming increasingly concerning.
I thought the leech people were chaos twisted. Holy fuck.
Yeah, no, it's a bad scene.
So much worse.
Yeah.
It's so much worse than I thought.
Yeah, the leech people are irradiated settlers on this planet who lived outside the dome. The dome was a real nice thing if you're one of the people who got to live inside, but if you lived outside, you turned into a horrible leech person.
Otherwise, unfortunately, the dome is just a giant glass egg within which there are many morsels.
Yeah.
Yum, yum, says the leech person.
Want to be a morsel?
I like that this is just an episode of Planet Earth.
Can David Attenborough?
But the leech people moved quickly, and unfortunately their sharp teeth were too much for the average citizen. Oh, almost got away. So the PDF is actually pretty solid at fighting the leech people, because that's been their primary function for almost as long as Galen's glory has existed. Chaos Twisted Navy, like Marine Corps, not to be confused with like Space Marine Corps, but like Marine Corps, a little bit better at fighting and killing. So it's going to shit real fast topside. You, Valentyne, for the first time, you start to actually hear them. You hear kind of in a scattering of broken transmissions, their realization that there's a chaos presence on the planet, and that since Galen's glory does not serve the purpose it was intended for, if they can't mop this up immediately, like, bye. So that's kind of what you're getting mostly through the Vox coder, and Eugene's like jaw is just like clattering along with it, and then just hanging open dully when there's like static, and then as soon as something clicks back in, he just starts. It's like I like to imagine that the when he was kind of like rolling down the deck, his jaw got a little dislocated, so now it's got a bit of like the wacky skeleton jaw thing going on.
Yeah, the left side's a little lower than the right side.
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
so-
It just moves in a cartoony like N64. We want to show horror, but we don't want to show horror way.
Yeah,
You
he's got a little bit of that
Banjo-Kazooie.
like vaudeville comedian mouth.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. So, meanwhile, Alto, you are kind of, leading the expedition to some extent. And this is, I think, a bit of a fascinating, if terrifying, moment for you, because you certainly read about this duct system. You understand that it exists, but getting to see it firsthand is actually incredible. This is engineering on a scale that you've rarely gotten to interact with. But you also have the added stress of knowing that, in all likelihood, Lyric and Valentyne will not be able to fly this craft. So this is going to be some real, how long did you spend in the simulator, kid, kind of bullshit. What do you think's going through your head right now?
I think Alto's thinking about just getting there. I think I think because he's on the run, he just ran from leech mutants and some horrifying disembodied voice in that pod, and buildings coming down around him. I think it's really heightened his focus, and like all peripherals are like non-essential right now. So it's all about like, okay, you just got to figure out where we are on this map relative to, because it's a drawing, it's so much harder to figure out because this place gets built up and torn down all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of his focus is on just got to get us to the ship, and then we'll do the next part, and then the next part kind of thing.
Gotcha. All right. So it is very much a progression-based mindset then. Just
As of right now,
I will focus on the objective because everything else is a little too overwhelming.
I can't really think about anything else for fear of what it'll do to my brain.
That's fair. So as you're making your way through, you finally come to a bend The tunnel that has up till now been straight finally begins to curve. And as it does so, you see a body wearing a PDF uniform. The Planetary Defense Forces are kind of the lowest, like they're a step above. I mean, I guess in like modern terms, it'd be kind of like the National Guard. So they're a step above cops, but they're a step below Imperial Guard and kind of how the Imperium works. So certainly like trained soldiers and know what they're doing, but also Galen's Glory hasn't seen action in centuries. So, but you see a body kind of slumped over, and you can see he's got an old las rifle. So kind of like a clearly like would have been top of the line at some point. But certainly functional enough that it could still work. Think of it essentially as a bolt-action modern rifle. So it's, laser powered, but not super great. But
I was gonna say, if you want an in-world version, that's called a last lock. They're old. They're like one shot, kind of like bolt, crank it out, fire another one.
Great. Okay. So yeah, we'll say it's a last lock rifle then. Alto, are you holding weapons?
I am actually. Yeah. I have a couple weapons under this big, like cloak poncho that I've got on me. So I haven't brandished them yet, but yeah, I'm
right.
carrying.
Well, it's up to you then whether or not you want to take this, or if any of you want it. But it's also the first kind of sign of habitation you've seen down here.
How this weapon is looking kind of old. How old or fresh is this corpse looking?
It's very old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's you can see there's what seems to be a self-inflicted last shot to the head. You had heard tales kind of in your study of the network of people getting lost down here, because if you didn't have a map of any sort, this vent system runs throughout the entire hive. So the odds of you just wandering kind of forever are not outside the realm. But
I think Valentyne would step forward and be like, all right, friends, I've noticed that it seemed like you may have been slightly underarmed for dealing with these mutants and, dare I say, infected members of the Navy. So one of you like this weapon. Also, I'd like to just casually flip through his pockets to see if there's food, because I feel like Valentyne is one of those people who can kind of eat anywhere. And they've never discussed it in Warhammer, but I'm imagining they're like IMRs, Imperial meal replacements that are like our MREs.
Yeah. You do not find any. You get the sense that might be why he ate his gun.
Oh, balls. That makes a lot of sense. All right. So, anyone? Last lock? It's old, but it's good.
I mean, it's not really like a question of firepower. It's more like a desire not to fight them at all. Sir, what's your name?
My name is Lucius Valentyne, and I am a member of the Emperor's Holy Inquisition. I'm afraid when it comes to chaos and mutancy, it is a legal requirement that we all fight them. And if you kneel down, they will feast upon your soul and your bones, which I've heard bad things about. But you know what? The fighting is really the fun part.
Lyric is just like, what the, like in her head, it's like, who the fuck is this guy and why the fuck is he taking so long to explain things that are totally irrelevant right now? So she just like walks up, like basically like tromps up to him, grabs the last lock from him and just like, I'll take it and let's fucking go.
Oh, perfect. If you'd done that right away, we wouldn't have had to have this conversation. Now let's continue, friends. All right, you map boy. Let's do this.
And I'm back to it. I'm Map Boy.
All right, lead on, sweet Map Boy. So you make your way further in, and Lyric, I feel like you're probably the most aware at any given time.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, can you roll me? What kind of check do I want? Let's go with We'll probably just make this a straight perception.
All right.
So that is
Cunning based.
cunning and perception.
Fuck yeah, it is.
And I'll say difficulty 2. And I'm going to give you 1 setback dice because you're in a lint swamp.
Okay.
Like, I made this. This is my fault, but it's so gross. I fucking hate it so much.
Do we need to
Everybody-
establish story points?
Yes, we do. 1 moment, please.
Everybody at home and here, just imagine your mouth full of lint right now, because that's what we're experiencing.
Also, please sign up for our Patreon, and that feeling will go away. There are 5 story points available to you and 1 available to me.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So Tom, you said difficulty 2 and add a setback?
Yeah, and 1 setback. So that's 1 black dice.
Cool. 1 failure.
Okay. Yeah, you hate this environment, not just because it's gross, but because as someone who spent a lot of time hunting in the hive city, this is kind of the equivalent of being in a field. Like, there's no real cover, there's no blind alleys, like there's none of the tactics that you normally have are viable here, which is you find very frustrating and a little bit off-putting.
It's disconcerting, yes.
Absolutely. So you continue making your way forward. Valentyne, can you roll me a Streetwise, please?
Streetwise? Sure.
Difficulty 2 as well, please.
Cool. Is this perception based, Tom? I mean, I just wondering if the Auspex factor's in or not, or is it just
No, this would just be a thing you're visually observing. It is technically perception based, but you wouldn't be using the Auspex for it.
That makes sense. 3 successes and 1 advantage.
Damn, son. All right.
Fuck yeah.
So you notice that there are some recent tracks through the muck. They seem to be single wheel tracks, seemingly like and there are several of them. So it almost looks like a number of motorcycles have come through here not that long ago.
Interesting. All right, friends, I have some excellent news, and I'm going to be quieter while I deliver it. It appears that several motorcycles have come through this area. Do you know any gangs or motorcycle clubs that might have used the ducts for a purpose?
The only motorcycle gang you're aware of, Lyric, are the Nashers. They love motorcycles almost as much as they love eating people.
Oh, the fucking cannibals. The Nashers, the fucking gang, they're stupid.
This is an awkward moment. What does fucking mean?
It can mean kind of whatever you want it to mean in the moment.
It can mean a lot of things, yeah.
Is it positive or negative? It's being thrown around a lot. Maybe these Nashers are lovely people.
It can be positive, it can be negative. In this case, I think cannibalism is ridiculous, so fucking cannibals is negative.
All right, so negative right now. I'm sorry, I have to learn the idioms. You know, every world has their own language.
All right, let me be clear. These guys are bad.
All right, so do we shoot them on sight? Are they criminals?
Well,
I think we have a time limit here. I think we need to get off this fucking world. So maybe we just shoot anyone that gets in our way. How about that? Okay, let's go.
Lyric, you just finished a job with the Nashers. Is there any goodwill there, or are we not going to test that and just kill anyone in our way?
I don't know. Fine. I'll give like a, hey guys, can you give us some help? And if they're like, not yes right away, then just fucking shoot them.
Well, could we hire them perhaps for protection? I am incredibly important. I could perhaps give them pardons.
I'm sorry. We're going to do like a monetary transaction while we're like fleeing for our lives.
No. I don't have money now. I could get money later. Right now, I could promise them things.
Oh, buddy, yeah, no, that's not going to fly with the Nashers.
All right, that's fair enough. So how many people could we fit in this travel thing that we're moving towards? It wasn't entirely clear to me. Could it be 1 or 3 or 35? Do we know?
The astral, you don't know too much about the astral line, but it was meant to kind of move people between Galen's various projects. So think of it kind of as like almost a ferry. So I'd say probably like safely 30.
Okay.
Interesting. So, in our worst circumstance, we can offer the nashers the way out of, shall we say, a hive that will be destroyed from orbit.
Yeah, we could phrase it like that. Yeah.
Worst case scenario, we shoot them. I feel like these are going to be fun options.
Look,
I can't wait to have a fucking adventure.
He's getting it.
Yeah. I just want to say, if they appear to be able to help us, say if we find that we need them, then we should make our arrangements. However, I am not voluntarily getting onto a confined space with a shit ton of cannibals. That's just fucking ridiculous.
That's bad fucking, right?
Yes.
All right,
Yeah,
see, I'm learning.
It's a real point counterpoint right there. Yeah.
So why don't we go and
going?
find out what the answer is going to be?
It's like stick his toe over his shoulder, like, yeah, I should do the map thing again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's great. What's your name, young man?
Me, I'm Alto.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Alto. I promise you a reasonable amount of money in the future, along with, let's say, a pardon for any historical activities. I don't have access to your background, but I believe that you deserve a pardon.
Do you have access to any kind of, fast rides?
Oh, down the line, I can literally do anything.
Okay, we'll
A
talk.
lot of people who are insane say they hear the Emperor's voice in their head. Here's an interesting thing about you two. You're hearing his voice right now.
I'm walking.
Well, not her, but I mean,
I'm
you
walking
are.
away.
We shouldn't separate. We should stick with Lyric. Trust me,
Right,
she's
yes.
the toughest one out of all of us.
Well, I believe that's quite possible, and I might surprise you. So here's a question, and I just like start walking with him along the path towards the circle. I'm like, this is awkward, but she seems incredibly hostile, and we may need to win these nashers over. Should we really let her lead this talk? She seems somewhat, shall we say, pleasantly dismissive.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Lyric finds work pretty regularly. She gets on well enough with her clients and contractors. Although the planet wasn't blowing up then, so I don't know.
These are reasonable points. Now, what kind of things does she look for in terms of payment from employers?
Immediacy? Promptness?
Well, I mean, that's what we're doing now. We're walking along.
Yeah.
She gets
yeah.
paid in timeliness.
Oh, yeah. No, you don't want to be late to pay Lyric. I've seen her. What?
I feel like we're just having a disconnect here. What do people pay her with? What does she value?
What? Money, my guy. Like thrones.
Oh, yes, the coins used in this system. Interestingly enough, if this city is destroyed, how much do you think the thrones will be worth one system over?
You're asking me questions I have never in my life considered. I don't know. I don't
Here's
know
a
what's
fun thing, friend.
around the corner.
I just clap a hand on his shoulder. I'm like,
We're going to expand your horizons immensely. And you have two exciting opportunities. You can go insane or adjust. And the Emperor will help you do what you are meant to do. Now let's walk. Pay attention to that map. Alto the map boy.
And Alto's like, yeah, all right. Alto the map boy. Just looks down, tries to figure out where the hell we are.
Cool. So you have a rough idea based on the curve that you've just passed. However, you start to find that the light is giving out. And Valentyne, you can see that it would seem that all of the bulbs and all the kind of like lantern sites have been shot out.
Well, this bodes poorly. Lyric, if you don't mind. All of the lights have been shot out. Do you have any way to see in the dark? Or does dear Alto the map boy?
Actually thinking. The only thing that I can think of is like my targeter on my rifle, but I don't know how well that would like pick up anything.
Alto has a night cloak, so he can hide well in the dark, but he cannot see well in the dark. So it's mainly pick a place and stay there for him.
The answer, it would seem, is no. Neither of them can see in the dark.
No.
All right, so here's what I think we might have to do. So back when I was in the School of Progenium, there was a fun thing that we used to do for entertainment purposes. One boy would bang on a pot, and the rest of us would form what we like to call a conga line. We learned this from the planet of Conga. So everyone would put their hands on one boy's shoulders, and he would lead the group. So what I think is both of you should put your hands, Lyric, you on perhaps my shoulders, Alto at the back, and then I'll lead us forwards because I'm the only one who can see in the dark.
All right, and I just like, yeah, this is the best option. And I put my hand on Valentyne's shoulders, and you can just feel like the brass knuckles that are in my left palm.
Alto, this is an awkward question, and I hate to presume anything, but I do see that you have what appears to be a mind impulse unit. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, good eye.
Ah, charmingly illegal. All right, so what I'm thinking is perhaps you, with your map, could plug into my Auspex so I could see where I'm supposed to go.
I mean, the map is just written on paper.
Ah, I should have taken this from you earlier. Well, thank you.
I'll take the map
Hand them the map.
and lead us into the dark cautiously.
There is something truly charming about a society that's so far past paper that they just kind of naturally assume that there would be no reason to stare at paper ever. Like, surely you have this uploaded. Great. So you continue to follow the map, and you start to make better time as the sort of debris has clearly been disturbed by these passing vehicles. However, when you start to kind of approach what seems to be the entrance to the tunnel system that will take you kind of out of the vent system and on your way to the astral line, you can actually hear people. You can hear voices. There's the sound of idling motorcycles. And some kind of gruff voices and the sort of metallic screech of a high-powered welding torch.
Lyric, do you recognize any of these voices?
Is it the Nashers?
It is the Nashers.
Yeah, it's the cannibals.
So here's the question. Should we conga line up to them and have a group conversation, or should we send you ahead and perhaps cover you from a distance?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Just like get ready to shoot them, okay?
Oh, yes, of course.
And now for a lesson in lyrical diplomacy. Lyric, you step forward and kind of approach, and sure enough, you can see there are about 6 bikes, and you see what looks like about 9 nashers. They're looking a little rough. They've definitely seen combat. And there's one just kind of like big one-armed lady holding a welding torch, just like going to town on the sealed, think like almost a bank vault door. The door itself is, even though it's a service access, is surrounded in gilt gold. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of see in swirling script the words Astral Line service entrance. Your eyes also pick up in the sort of bright glow of the torch, a very clear kind of indentation that one could place an inquisitorial sigil by way of key. But given that the Nashers do not have an Inquisitor amongst them,
right.
They are trying to brute force it. As you start to approach, one of them whistles through pointed teeth, and a bunch of them break off. And it's the classic, like, a couple up on top, one kind of drops down, and they're all moving up kind of two little groups of 3. So 6 of them, and then there's 3 more still working the door. 2 more working the door, and 1 kind of overseeing all of it.
Yeah.
So you have these 2 groups of sort of 3 each making their way forward, but the one who whistled is kind of leading the pack. He's kind of like a very sharp-featured, almost rat-like features with kind of very prominent teeth, sort of a pointed nose, and he's wearing those like classic. I forget whether it's Bebop or Rocksteady, but like big pink, like slotted glasses. Yeah. And he just kind of says, "Well, if it isn't Lyric, you're back. Something wrong with your payment, or did you just get tired of fighting leech people?"
Second one. Trying to get where you're also trying to get.
Oh, hey, boss. Sounds like she knows about the old astral line too. What are we thinking here? And the boss turns and just like 7 foot tall, just mostly muscle, scary looking dude. With a wicked scar that just kind of bisects his mouth. So not Joker style, but kind of like someone clearly slashed him across and he poorly stitched it back together. And he just says, well, I don't really see why we should bring along any dead weight. Unless, well, actually, now that I think of it, we might get hungry on the voyage. Fuck it. I say kill her. And they kind of sort of laugh in unison, and the guy who's addressing you is like, well, looks like I'm gonna get my money back.
Oh, you fucking idiots. And I just draw my auto pistol and I fire at the guy right in front of me.
All right, let's roll for initiative, please. So in the case of you, Lyric, you will please roll. This is normally it's either cool or vigilance. I think this is cool rather than vigilance because you're not springing an ambush, you're just reacting to what's happening.
Okay,
so I'll actually say
that's
for
fair.
all three of you, it will be cool.
That's fair.
This is a difficulty 0. We're just going based on how many successes you get.
Interesting fact for our 2 hive worlders, they both automatically add 1 success for being wary.
Both wary.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh,
Sorry,
hey.
did you say difficulty
0.
2? Oh, 0.
Yep. Just looking
literally
for how
just-
many successes you pull so I can figure out the order.
Okay.
I have 1 advantage.
I have 5 successes, 1 advantage.
Nice. I have 1 success and 3 advantage.
Okay. Cool. So, Alto, you're actually up first. The second you see the big boss starting to talk in menacing tones, knowing Lyric's disposition, you kind of know how this is going to go down. So you start reaching for your piece. What do you do?
So Alto, in preparation for Lyric walking up to these guys and talking to them, has basically activated his night cloak. So he's very difficult to see in the dark, even on like thermal, because it also keeps the heat inside the cloak. And he has in his hands a las carbine with a silencer on it as well. So it's just maybe like a little as he takes like his first shot like out of this tunnel.
Sure.
If she's like, you guys are idiots, and I see her draw, I'm sure Alto's thinking like, Lyric's got that one. He's already dead. He doesn't know it. So I'll pick off or start to fire on one of the other nashers.
Okay, cool. So you can think of these as 2 kind of groups. Do you want to go for the group that the rat-faced thug is in, or the other group?
Let's go for Ratface.
Cool.
You
Great.
described it, so he must be more dangerous. So let's let's get him out of here.
All right. So Ratface is the guy directly in front of Lyric that you wanted to leave alone because she'll kill him. But you can target his group.
I'll
so
target
say
his group,
you go after them. We're just to keep this mentally simple. We're gonna go with shirts and skins on this one. So Ratface and his crew are the shirts. The other group are all like various degrees of shirtless. One of them's like a real mean-looking lady wearing like a denim vest. One of them just has like a shirt tied across himself for some reason. They're.
And you wonder why Lyric thinks these guys are idiots. Like,
I didn't wonder. All right, so Alto, for your shot, then we are looking for believe the carbine is ranged light.
It's ranged heavy.
Ranged heavy? Okay.
Yeah.
So ranged heavy with, I believe, agility. And you are at mid-range, so we'll say 3 purple.
Are they long range from me? Because I have a scope on it as well. I got 2 attachments for it. I got a silencer and a scope, so I can take an aim.
Okay, it would probably make
range.
more sense that you're at long range if you sent her up ahead. So yeah, we'll say long range, but you have a scope, so that reduces it by 1 purple.
Okay.
I think. Sorry, what does the...
It increases the range of his weapon by 1 band if he does an aiming action. So his medium range weapon would be a long range weapon.
I see. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. So
Okay, I thought you just gain a boost.
You have a different scope than he does.
Nah. Oh, that was just aim. Never. I don't know.
Wait
Whatever,
a minute.
it's fine.
Ryan, did you help build 2 of these characters? Yeah, so the aiming maneuver is actually a thing you can do. It's basically each time you take aim, as your kind of main action for the turn, you gain 1 boost dice going forward on the next shot. So if you're trying to take a particularly difficult shot, you could spend 3 rounds aiming and you'd add 3 blue boost dice to whatever you're doing. So in order for this scope to function, you have to say that you've taken the aim thing. That said, when Alto went forward, I think if your goal is to cover her, it would be perfectly reasonable to assume that you had already taken aim. Like, I don't imagine you'd be like standing there with your gun by your side and like, oh shit, oh, where's my scope? So yeah, we'll say that you've already done that. So your medium becomes long, great. So we're looking at 3 purple plus 1 blue for aiming.
Okay. Great.
And I'm going to give you 1 setback for it being dark.
Okay. 2 successes, 3 advantages.
Nice.
And what is the damage on your weapon there, sir?
The damage is 6.
What's your crit?
My crit is 3. Oh, so with three advantages, I can, if I spend those, I can crit. Right. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good then. Because another thing we can do, we talked about this only lightly in the Star Wars one, is you can like pass advantage forward as well, right?
That is correct.
Creating momentum. Okay.
Yep.
I think I'll spend them anyway.
On the critical or on future advantage for Valentyne and...
I'll spend them for the critical.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, and I'm sorry, you got 2 successes. Your damage is 6.
Yep.
All right. Cool. All right. Yeah. Cool. So you see one of these shirted nashers, and yeah, you kind of like track your scope from up and over Lyric's shoulder to like the first guy you can find, and it's just like a guy who is just like clanging a pipe against his hand, like just fully ready to jump in there and pulp some skull. And as capable as you know Lyric is, you also know she's a lot squishier than she thinks she is. And she would completely ignore someone wielding a melee weapon as like a dope because she's going to get in close and brawl anyway.
Right.
But you know better than that because this guy's just going to jump down and brain her. So you decide to brain him first. So with a quiet like, your the sort of digital interference of the las shot is silenced. And a straight kind of beam of laser energy strikes this guy just above his eye, and the back part of his head just blasts off there's like a quick blast mark behind him, and for a second the tunnel is lit up, and then he like falls forward onto the pipe, which like cracks the other side of his skull, and then sort of slumps into the lint. Which happens the moment after he says, like, I'm going to get my money back. And you see Ratface's eyes go wide, and he says, well, boys and girls, And people think we're fucked.
This episode of the Valentyne Heresy features Ryan LaPlante at the Ryan LaPlante on Twitter as Inquisitor Lucius Valentyne, Tyler Hewitt at Tyler_Hewitt on Twitter as Alto, Laura Elizabeth at EL Hamstring on Twitter as Lyric, and our Game Master Tom McGee at McGeeTD on Twitter. This episode was edited by Ryan LaPlante, and the Valentyne Heresy's show logo was created by Decapitated Markers at Decapitated Marker on Twitter. That's MRKR. Our theme song is The Hordes by Megan McDuffie, and our ads use the tracks No Control and Chiefs by Jazzar, JAHZZAR, provided by freemusicarchive.org. When it comes to Dum Dums and Dice, you can visit our website at dumdumdice.com. Our Twitter and Instagram are at dumdumdice, and on Facebook at facebook.com/dumdumdice. We have merchandise available at redbubble.com/people/dumdumdice, and most importantly, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/dumdumdice. That's DUMBDICE. Ave Imperator, and death to all the heretics.
Dum Dums and Dice has to give a special thank you to the supreme beings of our Patreon at this time: Christian Menicola, Long, the Half-Blind Prophet, James Cuellar, DM Rob, Christopher Little, Olin Anderson, Sue One, Devin Boyce, George Dolby, One True Artistry, Orion Birchfield, Anthony Griffin, and Jill and Noel LaPlante. If you want your name to be added to this list, you can join our Patreon too at patreon.com/dumdumdice. Thanks to them, and a little bit of thanks to you.